You! This is what I serve my country for! Freedom of speech, you piece of shit!
Feel free to leave.
I'm a constituent. It's your question.
If you're going to act like that, you've interrupted repeatedly. Hey, we're just going to wait until you're done.
Answer the question. Freedom of speech,
That's
dude.
freedom of speech. Let him stay.
Let him stay. Let him stay. Let him stay. Let him stay. Let him stay. I want you to answer the question. Just like all your constituents here.
In the audience who are not comfortable with being recorded, please refrain from recording.
Hang on, is that a Republican politician who's not actually into free speech? Where are my pearls? I must clutch them.
Dude! No! This is I can't believe you guys are participating in this. The young man had rights. This young man had rights. You, Lawler. You. I serve my country for a piece of this you. Go f yourself.
That was at a town hall for Republican Mike Lawler, where he was getting heckled and yelled at by actual veterans who know a thing or two about these wars that people in power keep putting us in. And as it turns out, it's not just veterans who are fed up with this administration.
Some new reporting by Politico that suggests there's a growing generational divide among Trump's MAGA supporters, with young men in particular turning away over the Iran war. At CPAC, they talked to this 30-year-old Iraq and Afghanistan war veteran who voted for Trump in 2024, who was very critical of the war, saying, quote, he's lied about everything. If you go into a war where there's no end game, how's it going to end? There's no clear objective. Another man, a 21-year-old, saying, quote, Trump and Republicans in general are going to have major issues in the midterms in 2028 as well if we can't wrap this up in a relatively quick amount of time.
That's right. That's at least two young men in America who have not completely lost their minds. I guess you got to start somewhere, right? Isn't that right? Geraldo Rivera? Okay.
This is the biggest involvement that I recall since the days of Vietnam, where there were so many tens of hundreds of thousands, millions of people, millions of Americans, many of them, interestingly enough, Gen Zers, who, and many of them men also, who all voted, or a lot of them voted for Trump. Yeah. He could be down to, or getting down to the bitter enders, the hardliners. But even there, you see, Nancy Mace went one way, Lindsey Graham, both of them from South Carolina, going the other way. I think that MAGA itself could be fractured or fracturing. And I think the CPAC turnout is an indication of how MAGA has lost its mojo.
See, Geraldo Rivera would know a thing or two about how different generations feel about different wars because he's 800 years old. But it does seem like MAGA, at least online, is fracturing. And it does seem like there is a tide shift occurring, at least according to my own anecdotal evidence. But where we're going, we don't need anecdotal evidence. So let's look, for example, at the recent No Kings protests.
We know that when you're more engaged in the political process for a longer amount of time, then you definitively show up to vote. People kicking in fences and things like that, I don't know about it if they're going to be there in November. But the reality is that the No Kings movement, the last time that there was a protest, had about 6 million people. Now it's 8 million people at 3,300 rallies across all 50 states. And actually, 2/3 of them were in suburbs and small towns. One of every 50 people who live in America participated in one of these. It's clearly a thing that matters to people. And you see that being recognized not by Jesse or Greg, but by Republicans in Congress. So we have a record high number of electeds on the Republican side retiring early, 36 of them have already announced. Trump's approval is about 40% if you want to be super generous. And historically speaking, when it's less, you already told me, you have Rasmussen, who else, or the guy in the bow tie. And when the president's approval is below 50%, on average, the party loses 34 seats and the minimum loss of 9 seats. We only need 3.
Yeah, an increase in 2 million people over a few months seems pretty significant. And we're going to talk more about the No Kings protests in a second. But first, let's not forget that nothing says unbothered like stationing federal agents all over polling centers to fix a problem that doesn't exist.
One question I want the mainstream media's head to blow up today. We can use what's happening with these ICE helping out at the airports. We can use this as a test run, as a test case to really perfect ICE's involvement in the 2026 midterm election, sir?
Yeah, I think we should have ICE agents at the polling places, because if you're an illegal alien, you can't vote, right? It's against the law. It's a federal crime for you to vote in federal elections. And so if you're an American citizen, you should be happy that ICE is there, because you're not going to have illegal aliens canceling out your vote.
That was Steve Bannon talking to a man named Who Cares about how basically they're trying to get people used to the idea of ICE agents being everywhere so that it becomes easier for them to station them all over voting centers. Now, what the doofus on the right left out is that illegal voting in the United States is actually vanishingly rare. According to the Brennan Center for Justice, for example, there were in 2016 4 cases of actual voter fraud, and the vast majority of supposed voter fraud cases can be chalked up to clerical errors. In fact, it is more likely that an American will be struck by lightning than it is that they will commit voter fraud. So why would the Republicans be so concerned about it? I mean, after all, they're all about small government. So why would they be using the state to surveil polling centers? I think it's because they're lying, and it's because they're scared, and they're seeing the amount of people that are coming out to these protests. Now, I know that there are several criticisms against the No Kings protests. Should we be protesting No Kings, or should we be protesting a system that created the desire for a king in the first place? Is there a risk that these protests will be captured by the very system that they seek to fight against? Should we instead be looking, or be actually having a revolution, and do these protests serve as more of a release valve where we can feel better about ourselves but not actually get anything done? These are criticisms I often hear from my leftist friends, and I think there is some merit to them. However, what we are seeing is pretty significant. And I never thought I'd say this, but it's like Geraldo Rivera said. You know, this is a huge movement, and it might even be as big as the protests against the Vietnam War. People are fed up, and they are getting out of their houses, and they are connecting with other people who might be able to help them articulate this itch they feel that something in the United States has gone horribly, horribly wrong. And you know what? It seems to be working, because the Republican administration is definitely scared. They are shaking in their little fascist boots, and they're pulling out all the stops, including intimidating voters at polling centers. So I say protest away, you know, whether you're a soccer mom with a spritzer in your coffee mug, or, you know, a badge wearing member of Antifa, or a young man, or a veteran. The reality is this administration is just scared of the American people. And I think that personally is a good sign. So I'll see you next week, and F ICE and No Kings. And may we all live as long as Geraldo Rivera. I think it's the mustache, because he looks good. We should ask him what we should ask him what the revolution. We should ask him what the Crusades were. All right. I didn't know he was still alive. Bye, everybody.